Welcome to Midnight Brew and Mysteries, the podcast where the coffee is strong and the stories even stronger. Each episode, we dive into the unexplained, from chilling ghost encounters to unsolved mysteries that defy logic. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast for episode 2. Thank you so much to every single one of you who tuned in for episode 1. I'm so glad that a lot of you guys enjoyed it. I heard so many positive comments and a lot of you telling me that you were very excited about episode 2 and you couldn't wait for episode 2 to come out. So today is episode 2, and today we are diving into an urban legend called the Poplick Monster. So this is a real urban legend, and people have actually really died from this urban legend. So it is a very fatal urban legend that people lost their lives, and it's just blows my mind. Just how many stories there are about people who fell to their death from this train trestle, just trying to go catch a glimpse of the Poplick Monster. So that's what I'm sharing with you guys today. Very excited about it. I was super excited and pumped for episode 2, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. This is going to be an audio only episode, but I do want to tell you guys I am currently working on my setup for being able to do a video podcast on here. So very excited about that. I would have done it today, but believe it or not, I actually have a giant wooden jewelry box that I dragged in off the street that my neighbors were throwing away. And I cleaned it out the other day, but I have yet to fix it. There's a spot I need to fix before I can use it. So yes, I am that person who is grabbing random things off the side of the road, and it's currently in my room, and it's in the background actually right next to me. So no one really wants to see that during today's podcast, hence it is going to be audio only. But for today's episode, we're diving into the legend of the Poplick Monster, also known as the Goatman. And this urban legend has been a thing for a long, long time. So I mentioned to you guys that I lived in Kentucky. I actually grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. When I was about 8 or 9, we actually moved to Louisville from Chicago, where I was born and raised. And I lived actually just down the street from the train trestle. So I'm very familiar with this legend. It was actually just, I would say, maybe about 15 minutes up the road from me, which when I think about it now, I'm like, that's a little bit scary. But it was something that I heard about a lot growing up, something that, kids would talk about and teenagers would, drive out to Poplick and see it. And it was something I was very familiar with. And I actually have been to the train trestle myself. So I will share that experience with you guys and let you know what I saw. But it is a very scary, creepy place. I will tell you that. I'll tell you guys a little bit more about the actual area itself and, what it is like over there when I kind of tell you guys the story about going out there. But it's a train trestle, so it is a great big just metal or steel, I should say. It's probably made of steel or iron train trestle. Very, very tall. I'm actually going to pull up a picture of it here so that I can kind of look at it as I tell you guys about it. So basically, it's this very tall bridge that goes over a road called Poplick. It's Poplick Road, and it's a very small, windy little country road. It's very, very dark back there. Not a street light in sight. Probably like maybe 1 or 2 street lights. I remember when we did drive out there, it was so dark. Literally can barely see in front of you. That area has a lot of accidents, especially at night. Very horrible, violent accidents just because it is so dark back there. And it's a very windy road. People go speeding down these roads all the time. Very, big bridge. high above the roadway, where the train actually goes over that and crosses over the road. There's a lot of roads, different kinds of creeks and things in that area, and the train sits up very high on this trestle as it goes over. It is an actual active working train trestle. The train trestle is actually owned by Norfolk Southern, which is a train company, and it's an active train crossing. So trains go across it all the time. Big, freight trains, trains carrying materials. I don't think I've ever seen trains carrying people going over that, but it is an actual active crossing. It's very high off the ground. I'll actually tell you guys a little bit more about the size of it here in just a minute. But it sits up high above the trees even. I would say it's as tall as most buildings, maybe like a 3-story, well, probably bigger than that. I'm going to say maybe like a 8-story building. And this is just me looking at the picture. And remembering in person, but I remember buildings as tall as this, just really tall, high up there. And once you actually get up onto the trestle, there's literally nowhere to go. It's literally a railroad track sitting way up there. There is like these kind of like wooden guardrail kind of things on the side, and then that's it. So if you step up there onto that railroad crossing or that railroad track, there's really nowhere to go if a train is actually coming. You are either going to be ran over by that train, or you're going to try to get off of the track onto the actual framing of the trestle itself. And if you try to do that, there's a very good chance that you may not be able to get down there and you will fall to your death. And if you do, it is a long way down for you, far down. So you're definitely going to probably kill yourself if you jump off of that train trestle very high. And that's what makes this so dangerous. It's not even so much that the people are going up there trying to see this Goatman, because they feel like they hear him or they might catch a glimpse of him and want to get up there to see him closer. They climb up this train trestle, and then once they're up there, if a train is actually coming, there's nowhere for them to go. They're either going to fall to their death or they're going to get ran over by a train, which either way sounds like a very painful death. So the Goatman is a half man, half goat figure, sometimes described as having the body of a man, but powerful legs and curled horns like a goat. Other times he looks more like a demonic satyr, a twisted human face with these cloven hooves. So think of like those pictures that you would see of the devil. I hate to compare it to the devil, but you think about the devil, how he looks like kind of like a half man, half goat, standing up, these long, hooves and these curled horns. That's what people describe the Goatman as looking like, which is very scary and frankly really creeps me out. He draws his victims up to the train trestle by hypnosis or voice mimicry. So he can imitate voices like a crying child. He might call out your name to trick you into climbing up the trestle. Also, some people say that when people get too close to the train trestle, the monster chases people up the train trestle itself or, away. So this action forces them onto the narrow bridge where their escape routes instantly vanish and they have nowhere to go. So people have fell to their death because they climbed the train trestle up to the top and then fell to their death. So the Public Trestle is a towering railroad bridge. It was built in 1929, and the bridge is nearly 800 feet long and stands 90 feet above the ground. So just imagine how high up there it is. It stretches across Public Creek, which is just a very small creek that runs underneath it and surrounded by thick, eerie woods. There's no place to hide once you're on top of that bridge. That's what makes it so, so scary. And in fact, as I'm talking about it, I'm getting goosebumps because I just remember when I was there and I saw it in person and how scary it looked to me from just being on the ground. And I can't even imagine like being up there and being stuck up there and a train is coming down the track. It just sounds so terrifying to me. So, as I was mentioning, the Goatman, he basically lures his victims up there. He imitates people they know, he imitates children, crying babies, maybe even animals, who knows? He sometimes may let people get a glimpse of himself. They see him and they're like, oh my gosh, I've got to climb up there. I want to see him closer. And especially now in the days of, social media, I'm sure people would just want to get up there to get a picture or some kind of video. And once they're up there, it's basically too late. So people have kind of speculated what the Goatman really is. Is he a real person, creature, hybrid? Is he just a legend? But some of the most popular ideas for what the Goatman might be or how he got there. So there's a few of them, and I've made a few notes here just so that I can remember these better for you guys. One of the theories is that he is a circus freak. That's the most popular one. They are saying that the monster was once a deformed man or a half-human creature who worked in a traveling circus. And after years of mistreatment, he supposedly escaped when the circus train derailed near the trestle. Taking refuge in the woods, he became a local terror. So that one, do I feel like it's believable? Possibly. I mean, there's definitely people who have said that there are such things as a goat man or a half human creature. Another theory is that he was once a farmer who struck a deal with the devil and then cursed into this monstrous goat man form and bound to haunt that area forever. That one, I don't know that I quite believe that one as much. I don't know. I just feel like a farmer struck a deal with the devil. I don't know. I mean, it makes for a really good movie, but I don't know if I believe that one. And then the last legend that I wrote down is that some locals say it's a tormented spirit of a railroad worker who died during the bridge's construction. And I can see why someone would have died during the construction of that bridge. It is so, so tall. I mean, just imagine standing below it, and it's towering so high up above you that if you were up there working on it and you made one wrong step, you would fall to your death. So they think maybe that, this worker may have died and over time he was warped into something dark and vengeful. So those are some of the theories. I guess for me personally, I think the circus freak theory is the most plausible. And I also say that because I've heard some other legends about that area where there's these little tiny houses where dwarf hobbits live. I'm not sure if I believe that. I never did see any kind of little tiny hobbit houses over there, but I do kind of believe that there could have been something like that, a half-human creature who worked in a traveling circus and, he escaped and he's just kind of been haunting that area ever since. So I mentioned to you guys that there is actually people who have passed away and died from this train trestle. And you can find these records online. So they are out there online. You can kind of read more about it. But I did write down some of the victims' names, and I'm going to read them off to you guys. So the oldest one is Jack J.C. Charles Bam II. He was 17, and in 1987 he was struck and killed by a train on the trestle. Following him in 1992 was Grady, and he was 19, fell 100 feet after losing grip up on the trestle. Christina Butts, 19, 1993, she survived a near miss by tripping and falling. So she almost got hit by the train, but she fell to her death. So sucks to be Christina. That's really sad. Michael Wells was 14. He was only 14 years old. That is so crazy. And in 1994, he didn't get struck by the train, but he did survive by tucking under the tracks. James Ratterman, 35, also in 1994, he was trapped under an overturned ATV stuck on the trestle and then struck by a train, allegedly while deer poaching. So I guess he went up there with his ATV, which is just really not that smart, and then was struck by the train while trying to hunt for deer up there, which I can see how that would be a good spot to hunt for deer, but not the best idea. Nicholas Jewell, 19 years old. In 2000, he fell to his death after encountering a train coming down the tracks. Raquel Bain, 26 years old. In 2016, she was hit by a train and fell to her death while with her boyfriend. And the most recent one, Savannah Bright, who was only 15 years old. In May 29th, 2019, she was hit by a train while with friends, and another girl was critically injured. She was at the trestle despite her father's warnings about the danger of going up there. These are not the only incidents. There are dozens of deaths and hundreds of injuries that have been recorded over at least 40 years. And all of these from simply just being on top of this train trestle. Some of them going up there, because they wanted to see the Goatman. Some of them going up there just because they, I guess, wanted to see what it was like up there. But either way, people say the Goatman is real and that he is up there, and that when you see him, you are drawn to him. You are hypnotized. You want to go up there and see him. That he imitates a voice, that he calls out to you, that he taunts you and wants you to come up there. And people feel so strongly that they climb up there just to see him. That is absolutely terrifying. So I'm going to tell you guys now about my experience at the train trestle and going to see it as a 20-year-old. I was in my 20s at the time. And I had notes on this, but I'm going to just tell you guys how I remember everything. So we decided one night that we were going to go out there and see the Goatman, that we were going to go see the train trestle, and we talked about it in the car all the way there. So it was me, now at the time my husband was with us, and one of my best friends from childhood. We got in my car and it was dark. It was really dark. Probably 10 o'clock at night. We're out, driving around in my car because that's what people used to do for fun. As a 20-year-old, you went out, you went driving around in your car, going places, hanging out at the mall. This was back in the day. So we had this bright idea. We're going to go out there. We're going to see this train trestle. We're going to see this Goatman. And I could tell my husband was a little bit creeped out. He was kind of like, I don't know. But, we decided to go out there anyways. And my friend, she was all like, yes, let's go. I want to see it. Let's see if we can see him. So we drive down the road there, and like I was telling you guys, all the way there, it's super dark, really, really dark, like the kind of place where you can just see as far as your headlights are shining. So it's so, so dark. And we, of course, looked on the map on my phone to figure out, where exactly we needed to go. And we drove all the way down to Public Road. So it wasn't that far. It was like probably 15, 20 minutes from where my house was. And I remember when you turned left onto Public, there was just so many trees. It was borderline of forest right there, really dark, lots of trees. Just very eerie feeling and just very, very scary to be out there. Just in general, it was scary. And not too far from there is actually Taylorsville Lake, which is a really big lake as well. And I remember seeing like an entrance to kind of go over to Taylorsville Lake, but we ended up turning left onto Poplick and going down to the trestle. Driving down this little country road, little 2-lane road, super dark, headlights just barely lighting up the road in front of us. And we finally get to the trestle, and I remember looking up and just seeing this massive metal structure in front of me. It was so big. I mean, so big, 90 feet high. Just imagine that. It was so high up there. And it was like you had to strain your neck to literally look up there. That's how high it was. It's so dark, and my headlights are just barely shining on the bottom of it. And the bottom of the trestle, because there's like a creek there, and for support, there's like, giant concrete kind of block. And then the trestle's frame actually kind of rests on top of that. And it's kind of this dark black metal color, rusted, very rusty, and just so tall. Imagine like a just extremely tall railroad bridge. That's exactly how it looked. It was so high up there, and I thought to myself, wow, like there's no way I'm climbing up there. We even talked about it on the way up there, like, oh, maybe we'll climb up there if there's like a ladder or something. Screw that. We got there, and I'm like, I am not climbing up there. There is no way at all that I'm climbing up there. It is so high up. And I just remember how creepy, how eerie it felt in there. Just these woods, with these dark woods, and so dark you can barely see what's out there. And you look up, and in the night you just see this dark, massive bridge. And at the very, very top, you can tell, that's where the railroad crossing is. That's where the railroad is and where the train goes across. We stood there and looked at it for a few minutes, but obviously we're in the roadway, and there really wasn't a good place to park. We had to kind of pull kind of over into the grass, into the side, and actually be able to get out of the car because we were literally in the roadway. There's really not a good area to necessarily park right there. I don't know how when people go there, I feel like they probably must walk over there because there's really nowhere to really go, to park once you're there. Unless you access the trestle from like maybe a different area, but at least from Poplick Road, there was nowhere to park. So we did kind of pull over into the grass, and I just really felt uneasy. I felt like I just shouldn't be there. I felt like it was kind of scary. Just the darkest place I think I've ever been. And we stood there for a while, looking for the Goatman, hoping we could hear him, and kind of looking all around, hearing like branches snapping and twigs breaking, and you can kind of hear the creek below kind of rushing, and flowing. And I didn't know what was out there. I didn't know if it was deer out there, if it was raccoons out there, or animals, or the Goatman himself, but I just kept hearing sticks breaking and twigs breaking. And eventually I was like, no way, let's get back in the car. We are leaving here. This is just, I'm not climbing up there. That's crazy. And I keep hearing noises, and I don't know what's out here. And it's so dark. And I'm not okay with it. So we all were very creeped out. I remember my husband saying, wow, that is so tall. That is like really far up there. And there's no way we were going to climb up there at all. And we didn't see a Goatman. I didn't hear anything, but the area itself was so creepy and so scary, so dark, and just kept hearing noises, and there's no way. I was like, I'm not going up there. The Poplik monster may or may not be real, but it really is deadly, and people keep going back to try to see it. There's been a push to limit access to the bridge or to make it more safe, but so far nothing has been done. So there's actually a news story, and it was on WHAS 11, which is a local radio and news station there. And they actually did a story talking about a lot of the residents that live around that area, and they're just so concerned with this legend and people coming there all the time and trying to see the Goatman and falling to their deaths. They're trying to make it safer. But so far, it seems like nothing has really been done, and it's just continues to be this very tall, very scary, and dangerous place to go. And it's just so scary, so creepy to be out there. And when I look at a picture of the Goatman, he is just absolutely terrifying. I mean, he literally, to me, looks like the devil. He looks like this creepy goat, half man, half goat creature with these long curled horns. And I will post the picture as the thumbnail here for this podcast so you guys can see. And he's got these like hands of a man, but like hooves of a goat. And he's looks kind of tall, even tall, and just absolutely terrifying with this long beard that, you know, how goats have kind of that like long kind of beard and those sharp kind of pointed ears that goats have. And his eyes are just glowing in the night, just absolutely glowing in the night. And I couldn't find anywhere whether this picture was a real picture of the Goatman that someone took or if it was an image that was created. I never could actually find that out. But if this picture is real, it's absolutely terrifying when you look at him. He is terrifying to me. And if I saw him that night while we were there, I would have went running for sure. Absolutely. No doubt in my mind, I would have been running the heck away from there. We never went to the train trestle again because it was just really scary and very dangerous. And honestly, it just felt like a very haunted, eerie area and so dark and just scary. I didn't want to go out there again. I felt instantly uncomfortable being out there. Never wanted to go out there again. So, before I end this podcast, I want to just read you guys a little newspaper clipping interview that I found of someone talking about the Poplik monster. So, they're basically just like kind of blowing the whole thing off and kind of saying that they never saw it. But I just want to read this to you and kind of leave you guys with it so that you know this is a real urban legend, a place that people have died because they went up there wanting to see this monster. There's the Poplik monster, the half man, half goat, or half man, half sheep, or headless man, or something that inhabits the woods beneath the rusty railroad trestle towering above South Poplik Road near Taylorsville Road. I lived here for 40 years and never did see it, said Kenny Glasgow, who has since moved to Shelby County. Never could convince the kids of that, though, he said. Heck, they'd come from the South End, from Hikes Point, from Seneca High School. They'd whoop and holler and carry on something terrible. So what do you guys think of the Poplik monster or the Goatman? Do you think he's real? Or do you think he's just another unexplained or urban legend? Do you think he's really a circus freak? Or do you think he's really some kind of demonic spirit that lives there, taunting these poor young people to climb up there and to fall to their deaths? Whatever he is, he's definitely unexplained. I definitely don't recommend, if you are ever anywhere in Louisville, Kentucky, and decide that you're going to go see the public monster, whatever you do, do not climb up there. Don't try to see him. Just let an urban legend be an urban legend. But don't become one of the statistics of people who fell to their deaths just trying to catch a glimpse of him. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. This is episode 2 on the public monster. Be sure to tune in for episode 3. We're going to be sharing scary stories in the dark, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy that. I really appreciate all of you being here with me today, and I'll see you here again for episode 3 of Midnight Brew and Mysteries.